What's up guys, my name is Moo. I am a college student who loves reading and I'm here to share that love with all of you. Sorry if my face is a little red. I was just walking back to class and it's a mile uphill, so you know what all the grandparents say, like, oh, back in my day I had to walk to school in the snow and it was all uphill both ways. It wasn't that bad, but it was still freezing and uphill, and I am now a little bit hot because it took a lot of exertion, sort of. So my face is a little red, and that is okay. Today we are going over a book I read over this summer. It is a very famous book, an even more famous movie, and that book is Schindler's List by Thomas Keneally. Now this book is one that I read at the tail end of the summer because I was reading through all of the Holocaust memoirs I had collected over the course of a couple years, and I just wanted to read them all at once so that I could see their stories and see the similarities between them and that kind of thing. And I read Schindler's List last because while it is based off of true events and the characters in the story are almost all real people, especially the main characters, it is still a novel and it is still fictionalized in some ways. Like dialogue is created fictionally. It's very true to the accurate events, I believe. However, it is still a fictionalized version of true events, so I wouldn't call it a memoir because it is not a chronological account of things that happened, rather a fictionalized account of very real things that happened. And I understand that is incredibly confusing, and I think that people could argue either way, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, because there are good arguments for both. However, I am going to approach it as a piece of fiction, a useful piece of fiction, but a piece of fiction regardless. It still held a lot of value, it still was very historically accurate. However, I just think that that is the best way to do it because there are creative liberties taken, and even more so in the movie, which I will talk about later, comparing it to the book, because I think that there is a good amount of things to talk about comparing the book and the movie. So yeah, we'll go into that, but for now, let us read the summary. A stunning novel based on the true story of how German war profiteer and prison camp director Oskar Schindler came to save more Jews from the gas chambers than any other single person during World War II. In this milestone of Holocaust literature, Thomas Keneally uses the actual testimony of the Schindler-Juden, Schindler's Jews, to brilliantly portray the courage and cunning of a good man in the midst of unspeakable evil. And I think that summary definitely uplifts him a ton, and it's like, look at this amazing person, he saved the lives of 1,500 people, and that's fantastic. However, I definitely would also like to go into who he is as a person and his character and that sort of thing, because, you know, humans are not all good or all evil. There is a bit of both in all of us, and of course it's a spectrum, but I think that as heroic as Oskar Schindler was, he's still human, so we'll get into that later, but for now let's talk a little bit about what happens in the book. Alright, so the story of Schindler's List goes through the entire events of the war from the 1930s, the late 1930s, up until the end of the war in 1945, and it talks about the terrible things that the Jews had to go through in the ghettos and how Oskar Schindler managed to save the lives of over 1,000 people. Now, the way he did that, he spent a lot of money, he spent a lot of time with very evil people to basically manipulate and trick them into believing that he was part of the cause and believing that he had the same ideas and ideals and goals, and just kind of manipulated them into being like, no, these people are essential workers. I need them. How am I going to train other people so quickly to do this? Like, I need X, Y, and Z. And he basically convinced these people that these Jewish people were so valuable that he couldn't expend them, he couldn't replace them, so they had to stay, and that is how they survived the war. Now, I will say, 1,200 people in the grand scheme of things is a depressing number. Let us remember that during the Holocaust, 6 million Jews alone died, not to mention all of the other people that were targeted by Nazi Germany. To hear my entire life, because I heard from my mom and such about, Oskar Schindler, to hear my entire life, like, oh, look at this hero, he saved the most Jewish people of anyone, and then to hear that that number is only 1,200, like, it's so sad. It is just terrible hearing what happened to those people, and I don't know, like, it's bittersweet, because it's like, oh, that's 1,200 people that would not be alive without him. However, in the grand scheme of things, it's like, oh, that's not a lot of people, and it's just, I don't know, it's hard to think about, because I want to be grateful, but I can't help being sad as well. But Schindler works really hard. He, again, spends so much money, and does all of this business that is super shady and super scary, that if he got caught, he'd be in big trouble, but he did it anyways, and it was absolutely heroic. It was fantastic that he did that, despite how shady it is, because I feel like if going outside the legal system helps you save lives, I'm all for it. I say do it, and he did just that. He was shady with his business practices, but it meant that people were saved, and I think that's fantastic. Should this man go down in history forever for saving over 1,000 lives? Absolutely. However, I really like how in the book, Thomas Keneally did not take away at all from the fact that he was not a perfect person, and I think humanizing him made his actions stand out all that much more, because it's like, oh, this man, like, he's a man in the 1940s, he's a womanizer, he has multiple mistresses, like, he is short with people, he yells at people, he's just angry, and he, is fraternizing with the Nazis, so he has to act like that, even if it is for the purpose of saving people. They show the worst sides of him too, which I think is cool, because again, it humanizes him, and it shows, like, this was an imperfect person who did a heroic thing, and I think that's really cool, because if they painted him out to just be like this shining hero, this angel in the darkness, I think that that would have not done a correct service to what actually happened, and I'm very happy that it was written the way it was. It was very detailed. It was incredibly profound. I am really glad that Keneally had so many people that he interviewed and that helped him create this book, because I think without the first-hand opinions and experiences, it just wouldn't have ended up being as amazing as it is. Now, I feel like if people hear about Schindler's List, they go immediately to the movie over the book. And I will say, I watched the movie right after I read the book, and it was hard. It was definitely a hard watch. I had to pause multiple times to watch it, because it's one thing to read about things, and the things that are in this book, especially the actions in the ghettos, are incredibly graphic and incredibly scary to read, but it's a whole other thing to watch a movie, though fictionalized, showing those events. It's terrible to watch, but I think that it does justice to original material. I think that it was incredibly done, and actually I could only notice 2 changes that they made in the entire movie. Most of the time they retcon things from books and they change things around a little bit, like do X, Y, and Z, but they really didn't do that here. They added almost everything that there was in the original book. I can't remember off the top of my head anything that was like necessarily omitted from the movie that was in the book, which is obviously crazy because most of the time it's really hard to fit in everything in the movie that you see in the book. But they did a really good job of that. Steven Spielberg, obviously a genius, so that was really cool. However, there are two things that were changed that I think dramatized the movie a little bit more, and I just want to share those really fast. So in the book, Schindler is watching the action happen at the top of the hill, and there is an account of a toddler in a bright red coat, and she's just walking along with the soldiers, and she's sneaking off and very calmly walking through, but the point is she has a red coat. And in the movie they symbolize it, where the movie it's all like black and white, but the red coat is prominent through the scene, and you see her walking, you see her walking, you see her walking. So in the book we never know what happens to that little girl. It is assumed that she does not survive the war, unfortunately. However, we don't know what happened to her. In the movie, they take artistic liberties, and while they are exhuming the bodies that they buried after the actions, after the mass shootings of the Jewish population, they burn the bodies and they excavate them, burn them, cremate them so that there's not mass graves everywhere. And you see a wagon and there's a bright red coat as it goes by, and I think that that's a very emotional depiction in the movie. However, this is why I think we would argue that it is a fictionalized version based off of true events, because we do not know what happened to the little girl in real life. So that is one thing that was not mentioned in the book and is later shown in the movie to evoke emotion out of the audience. The other thing that is not part of the book that I believe is a very fundamental part of the movie is Oskar Schindler at the end of the movie, when they find out the war is over and the Jewish people get to go free. He has a speech, and it's very much like emotional and thought-provoking, and like, I did X, Y, and Z, like I didn't do this to X, Y, and Z, like da 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 da, very emotional, and I think very humility focused. However, that was also not in the book. That was also very fictionalized for the movie to, I believe, make it stronger narratively. And I'm not mad at that, because again, it is fiction. It is a fictional novel, albeit based on true events. But it was still not in the book, so I really doubt that that happened in real life. I'm just gonna be completely honest with you. Right now I am in a Nazi Germany class, and I'm learning about a lot of the horrors more than I already am, and it's just reminding me time and time again how terrible those things are that happen, and it's not something that we should ever forget. We should not let history repeat itself ever. You don't believe things like that can happen in a civil society. However, it happened then. Why can't it happen now? So I think it's important to be aware of the things that are going around you. It's easy to get buried and depressed in that work. However, I think that as long as you have a healthy balance and you are aware of what's happening, but you're not overly obsessed with it, I think that's really important. Just keep yourself informed, because education is one of the biggest ways that we can prevent violence and prejudice. On the other side of things, lack of education leads to violence, and I'm not saying that everyone has to go to college and take all of these scholarly classes and read all this scholarly work and like da 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 da. However, I do think that it is important to be educated on basic history. I think that it should be mandatory in schools to teach violent history so that we do not repeat this violent history in the future. And I just believe that using the past will help us become more empathetic people in the future and prevent the violent things that happened in the past from happening in any semblance again in the future. If we're all just a little more empathetic, if we're all just working a little harder to be as kind as we can, I believe that the world would be a better place, because, you know, as the great Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And if we're all just a little bit kinder to one another, it makes a big difference. So that is my encouragement to you guys, based off of these tragedies. It is an event in history that I am morbidly fascinated by, so I'm going to keep researching it, but I know not everybody can handle things like this, and I understand that. However, I do think that everyone should have a baseline understanding of what happened during the Holocaust. So if you feel like you are uninformed in that regard, please just do some research. There are so many good resources. There is, the National Holocaust Museum. There's plenty of memoirs that you can read, first-hand accounts. So yeah, I mean, that is my goal to you. Please educate yourself. So I recommend this book to history lovers, to people who like historical fiction, to people interested in World War II history, and those who want a story of good triumphing through evil. I don't want to say that good triumphs evil. I will say that that is something that they said in the intro that I was like, I'm sorry, like, evil won for 6 years. Evil was winning at a rapid rate. So I can't say that good triumphs evil in this book. However, it is the story of someone who is trying their best to do good while there is a massive expanse of evil happening around him. So if you are interested in stories like that, please give this book a read. Watch the movie too if you can stomach it. It's really hard to watch, but it's really good. Watch it in multiple sittings if you have to. I had to pause multiple times, and that's okay. Take care of yourselves, but if it is something you are interested in, I definitely recommend it. That's all I have to say for now. Sorry if my videos are a little bit quieter now, because it's just like harder for me to like raise my voice and stuff in a house of 15 people, but this is kind of the best setup I have. So I hope that the video quality is a-okay. I know it can't be perfect, but I am trying to get there. I'm still working out all the kinks, but I am doing my best. So yeah, I hope that you liked this video. If you do, please like it. Comment down below your favorite historical fiction, or if you watched this movie or read this book, tell me how it made you feel. If you like this content, please subscribe. I am here for you every Thursday at 11, but that is all I have to say for now. So without further ado, this has been Moo. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye!